I was going to mention open heart surgery
Okay.
because I had done that.
Mention it then.
Open heart surgery.
Oh.
And on to the next one. No, I did open heart surgery now 2 weeks ago.
Wasn't it last weekend? I don't know. I can't tell.
No, it was because last weekend I was in gravimetry. And then the week before that was...
Correct then.
So 3 weeks, this week, the week before. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago and a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, open heart surgery, for those that don't know, is a program of Breaking Convention who have their annual festival coming up at the end of April, beginning of May.
First weekend of May.
Yeah, well, I think it's like anyway, whatever. Yeah. First weekend in May, the full Breaking Convention Festival, but they do also open heart surgery and back to the lab, which are like, not professional development, what do you call that? Like
choreographic residency
residencies for theatre people to come in and just like make stuff basically. And it's like the idea is you can either come with an idea or come without an idea and just build. You've done it.
Yeah.
You've done open heart surgery once, back to the lab once.
Yeah.
I realised on this is the 4th time I've done open heart surgery.
Yeah.
Which is sick. Over the course of the last decade, basically.
Crazy.
Because the first time I did it was...
When I did it?
Probably 8.5 years ago, 9 years ago.
Yeah, when we did it together.
Yeah.
Cute. That's where we met.
Yeah. And
well, kind of. Not really, but got to know each other.
Got to know each other, yeah. And the first time I did it with 9 people. Then the next time I did it with 3. Then I did a duet. And then this time I did a solo.
Yeah. Next time you're going to do it, there's going to be no one on stage.
We already made this joke during the week, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that was a good joke.
Oh, thanks.
I just made it first.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was good. It was fun. I really like to put myself back in the vulnerable position of being an artist and having people be able to like critique my work in the studio, but also in the theatre. Not that there's really any other podcasts that are doing this type of thing, but obviously because I do this, it's nice to also give other people a chance to get at me if they have anything to say.
Yeah, well, come on.
No, but it's not only that, but it's like I just always want to be able to... That's not the only reason why I did it or why I do battles or anything like that, but it is part of it that it's like I want to still always remind myself of what it's like to be in that position when I'm critiquing other people doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't as easy as it looks to do that stuff. Like, I found it really difficult and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that you can't critique the outcome. Yeah. As soon as you put something on stage, it is open for business, for critique. But it is still nice for me, especially doing this, to go and like do these programs and do battles and put my stuff out there to make sure I always have that empathy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And also I think it's always good to, it's like an occasion also to check in with yourself or where you're at, like, you know, because obviously you have this going on, but you are also an artist and like a dancer and whatnot. So it's like, if you don't keep on being active through those things, it's like it just can not become part of your practice easily. So I think making the conscious effort to like put yourself in a position where you do get to practice also just keeps that muscle like engaged. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Well done.
Thank you. And yeah, it was interesting doing a solo, like working in the studio pretty much by myself. I've never really done that before. It was 6 minutes. All of ours has to be 6 minutes max, but I did it was like mostly improv, but it was like, it's an interesting thing because a lot of times I've had that like cop out kind of thing of like, I'll just freestyle it. And then I have some sort of structure, but I just rely on like freestyling. But like theatre, you can't really, like no one gives a shit if you do a cool wave. It's like, it has to have some depth to it somewhat. So it was like, I've never really done that before, but of like freestyling in the studio, but like actually trying to work on what, like not even coming up with moves choreographically, but like working what is this section of freestyle about and like what looks good, what doesn't, watching the videos back, like just working on what different types of movement will fit this thing the best, and do I have enough in my repertoire to fill those up, or do I have to build it, you know what I mean? So it was really interesting and good to do, and difficult, actually, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I really like enjoyed it, and I think you did a good job of like also, you know, like not unbiased, but I am also, because it's like I see you in your process and what I'm
trying to get to.
Yeah. But I think it's like, and this is what open heart surgery is also. It's just a place to try something, you know. So I don't think the idea behind it is to have anything that's like finished, ready to go on tour, but more a space to develop the seed of an idea. And I think, yeah, like whatever first iteration of an idea ends up on stage is never necessarily going to be like the full potential of the idea. But it's also, I think, the process of accepting like, oh, this is where you're at, you know. It might not be like exactly the vision you had in your head, but in order to get to that vision, there's a lot of stages that are also like as valuable as that last version that you have in your head, you know, is the road necessary to get there. So yeah, and I think, you know, you did something because you integrated like video and editing and projecting.
Shout out to Aiden who helped me on the edit.
Yeah, with movement. So I think it's like, you know, it was perfect for you in a sense that you used it to try an idea that you wouldn't get to try somewhere else because you wouldn't have the projector or the time to edit and whatnot. So, you know, it's always like you putting yourself in a vulnerable position, or, you know, I can understand how it feels vulnerable to try something like that when you don't know how it's going to turn out. But I think you did like a cool job and it turned out really cool.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, the video is on my personal YouTube, not on the Capsules YouTube, if anyone wants to check it out.
And who else performed?
Vasiliki.
Yes.
Did a great piece, which I think she's performed before, called, I want to say Panopticon. I think that's the right way of pronunciation. Right. About kind of us being watched and stuff like that.
1984 vibes.
Yeah. Gary Quake performed.
I love him so much.
Yeah, he's
such
great.
a fan.
Yeah, we love you, Gary. Who else performed? There was. I have to look.
Oh, what was the name of the rapper, or not rapper, but the spoken word?
Let me check. I'll get the full.
Apex.
Yeah, but I want to.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly they called themselves. So, yeah, Apex Zero and Corey Onyx David King performed a duet. And then, yeah, we said Vasiliki and Gary, and then Anya, who is a B-girl originally from Croatia, and then moved to Rotterdam, and then from Rotterdam came to London just for the week of open art. So that was cool. She's lovely. And then Ivan performed a piece, even though he was one of the mentors, he performed a piece
Jonesy's
that
piece.
Johnsy made, yeah, basically. And yeah, the mentors was Johnsy, Jane, and Ivan. And then on the last, I want to say 2 or 3 days, Vicky from Far From the Norm came as well.
Sick.
All really helpful, really interesting process. It's always like interesting working with them and working on open heart surgery, especially now I've done it a few times and I'm a bit older, I have a bit more experience and I kind of know what to expect. It's a really interesting process. Like there's sometimes where I'm really frustrated. There's sometimes where I'm loving it and loving the feedback and stuff, working with them. But it is good. The thing I will say to anyone young or doing it for the first time is like, you have to, it's a good skill to have, actually, to be honest, that open art does give you, but like you have to have the resilience to know when to like take on suggestions and when to not basically, because I think with four mentors, like one mentor is quite a lot as it is, but 4 of them is also quite a lot. And even Ivan says it at the beginning of the week, like I'm here to like kind of be tough and like just tell it to you straight and be blunt and blah blah blah, but it's like they're going to tell you what they think, like for the better or for worse, they're going to tell you exactly what they think about the piece. And I think if you like kind of have that, not filter, well, it is kind of a filter, but if you have that thought process of, okay, this is their opinion and they have the expertise, but it's my idea. And like, you learn to kind of hold strong in your like way of being as an artist. There are times when, and this is like where I feel like I had a really good balance of it this week, because now like I've had some experience and I've built that muscle, let's say, over long years, is like there's times where they say something and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do it like this. And that's a great idea, but I don't want to do it. And then there's other times where I had a really great idea. They said something and I was like, you know what? You're right. My idea sucks. Like they didn't say my idea sucks, but what they said made me realize like, yeah, no, you're right. This isn't going to work. And I'm missing a big hole. And you know what I mean? So, and I think it was a really good balance this time around. Before I found it a lot harder. But I think that is something I would advise people to go in with is like, and they would agree with me, I believe, that like it's okay to not take on every single thing that they say. Like, and this is a life lesson also, but it's like you listen to everything, you take it all in, you consider it, and then you ultimately, as the choreographer, have to decide which ones to apply.
Yeah, because I think that that's the thing. And like you said, I'm sure that they, or not, I'm sure, but I believe they would probably agree with this. But even if they come and give you their point of view or their perspective, like their role is really to ask you questions, not to give you the answers. So I think it's like, especially when it's a personal project or a creative thing, nobody knows what you want to do in your head. And it's like, you know, they can be helpful in helping you understand how it's being perceived, you know, or so that might inform how you shift certain things. But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, everyone's can have an opinion on it. So, you know, you can't necessarily shift it to like, oh, well, this person thinks this, so I'm going to do this, or this person thinks that, so I'm going to do that. So yeah, I think the way that they question things might not like, and I wasn't, the time I did it was like 9 years ago. So, you know, the way that they question things might not always sound like a question. But I'm sure that their intention is to like ask, to make you question what you're doing.
To be thought-provoking.
Exactly. So I think it's just important, like you said, to go into if you go into that process, or if you go into any process and you invite people into your process, to kind of accept that people are going to question and give their perception, but always kind of, you know, have it be like it is a question. They're not dictating, or they're not telling you how it should be, or how it, you know, how it's better, how it could be better. And if they do, it's like how it could be better according to them. So that's not necessarily, it doesn't mean like better on a, like
art is still a lot of individuality. Even
it's like subjective. So I mean, they might be right on some things and not right on others. But
can you speak on like having been in processes with kind of like bigger choreographers than myself, and like because for anyone to take their art from what I did in open heart surgery, let's say, to what the next levels of like theatre, because like I guess, correct me if I'm wrong on this part, but with building a theatre piece, whether you're a group, a soloist, whatever, the way I often hear people talk about it is like you start with a small idea, which could be like a 6 minute, like a small idea in theatre is a 6 minute piece. It's like, that's a very tiny, because like you're not going to really get commissioned to perform 6 minutes anywhere. So that's just a little vignette, let's call it, right? So then you take that, and the idea being, I guess the first sort of marker would be to build towards 10, 15. What would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, it depends.
Like, I'll finish my point. Okay, but like, would you say like 10 or 15? What's the first?
Sure. I mean, I would more aim towards like, like if you have a solid 6 minute, either like a 15 or 30. Okay,
so we're aiming like 15 with a view to building it to like a 30-minute performable piece, with a view to potentially building it to an hour or so, because from my experience, the mentality is like you want to be able to, the top of the mountain is selling a night that's yours. So the way that theatre is kind of done is like triple bill, double bill, or just you, based on how long the pieces are. Because you want, if someone's going to pay to come to the theatre, you want them to be, it's like a movie, you want them to be there for like an hour and a half or so, or an hour, including the intermission, right? So if you've only got a 20-minute piece, I'm not going to come all the way from my house, get dressed up, sit down at Sadler's, watch 20 minutes and then go home. I want more. So then they fit together triple bills. They fit together two double bill if it's, let's say, 2 45-minute pieces. And then if you've got an hour or over an hour piece, you've got your own night, basically. And that's the mountaintop, because if you're programmed for your own night, then that means you're not only worth it, but also your piece is big enough to fill the space. So what I was going to ask you about is having people, like, you've seen artists that are like in the 30-minute stage, in the their own night stage in like, you know, selling out multiple nights in a row, right? What, like, people coming in to the process, I feel like is like, if I was to go anywhere from 6 minutes upwards, I need to bring people in, whether that's a producer, whether that's a I don't know, like, what would you call it? Like a rehearsal director, or what's the dramaturg, or music producer, other dancers, assistant choreographer. Like, you have to build this team in order for things to start to work. Or if you're working with a venue, like, if, like, I guess Botus had some work with Sadler's where they were premiering Black Dog, like, they might have something to say about the process or the or the work or whatever. Like, they might even ask for a certain time, like, could you make it 5 minutes longer or 5 minutes shorter? So is there something where, in order for an artist to grow in success, they have to be able to allow people in? And if they don't, it's gonna, like, I would imagine if you're resisting everyone's voice, it's not gonna work, because no one's gonna be able to come into the process. Like, is there some quality that is like, an artist has to be able to work with a team?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You know, I think no matter, like, especially in the arts, but I think in life in general, it's like there's really not many things that you can go like a long distance just by yourself.
True.
You know, even with the capsule or with anything, it's like, I think partnerships and finding the right collaborators and building a bit of a team is such an essential part of success, you know, and of also making things that are this is my opinion and my perspective, but I feel like in order to make something that speaks to a lot of people, like, it's rare that it's really only the perspective of one person that informs that. Like, if you think of Beyonce, for example, like, obviously huge level of production, but it's like, okay, you love and like Beyonce, but it's like, how many people write her, like, you know, I'm sure she has like writing camps where there's like how many writers that are writing her song, how many people working on the production, how many people are part of developing the design and whatever. And yeah, maybe she's the person to sign it off, but it's like a group of a huge group of people. So I think in order to have like, that, you know, kind of that thing that speaks to a lot of people, having different perspectives that informs, that makes you like be able to speak, to cover more people. So I think that it's definitely part of it. Then, you know, a big thing is finding the right people for your idea, your vision, your what you want to make. So I think finding a team and developing like really what your ambition is really important, and like to have a certain level of clarity of what you want to make out of this. Let's say a piece that you made at Breaking Convention, like, is your goal to make it a group piece? Is your goal to make it an hour-long group piece? Is it like you just want to get to do it again with yourself? You just want to work more on the video? Like, I think like developing something and working more on it as you pass different stages, it's like, what does that work look like? You know, what is your final version in your head? What are you aiming towards? And then, or what are you aiming towards in the next phase? Like, I think if you kind of know where you're at and you know where you want to be, then it's easier to establish like what the next step is, you know? So let's say you have, you know, and I think open heart surgery is a great idea, like I said, to try something, and then you have something to show, you know, to speak of that ambition, to say like, here's what I made. I want to turn this into half an hour with 3 people. I want to develop it in this way, that way. But yeah, I think kind of gaining some clarity on the ambition, and then knowing, you know, okay, ideally at the end of the road, you want to be working with like a dramaturg and maybe a rehearsal director, a composer, a lighting designer, like a costume designer, a set designer, maybe all of that. But it's like, okay, maybe 3/4 of those people only come in like later on. So maybe right now, if you identify, you're able to watch what you did and see where the holes are and what are the, you know, what are the strong points, what are the not so strong points. and then, you know, right, okay, you have 6 minutes. Like, what about if you make it like 12 minutes, but make it a lot stronger? Like a strong, or even if you like rework that 6 minutes, but make it a strong 6 minutes, as opposed to like a first try of the idea 6 minutes. So there's so many different ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
So I think tackling the work and like defining what the next step is really important, but it depends on the person. Like, I don't think there's necessarily a formula of how to tackle that work, but it's like, right, if you know you have like 1 or 2 trusted people, like even, you know, the mentors are great, because maybe they're people that if you have a really good rapport with one of them, then you can kind of keep going to them, you know, like.
But if you're the type of person that's like really close to anyone, like having anything to say about your like as much as those people will not come in until later in the process,
Yeah.
you also need to be open-minded to like having other voices.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, definitely. I think like if you only want it to be your voice, then you're going to do the lights, you're going to do the costume, but you know, because you can't necessarily be strong at everything. You just have to accept that like it's not going to be as elevated as it's going to be, because you might not know really what you're doing,
and you won't accept help to make it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, you have to like some people are really good at certain things, and you have to like give them space to be really good at what they're good at. And I think that, you know, I like at the end of the day also, you know, for the way I see it, and like when I work with artists, and it's a difficult balance to have, but for me it's like, it's not like the collaborators are serving the artist. It's like everybody is serving the work and the piece, you know. So as even if it's your idea, like you're serving not yourself, but like the vision of what you want to create, and everybody is at the service of that thing. That's not a person. So it's not like people have to please you, and people have to like. It's more you being able to share the idea of what you want to create and the story you want to tell, and then people being able to become part of that story and to kind of have their own interpretation at this of that. And that really then does the job. That's not about like you being the artist having, you know, your like people cater to what you want exactly.
Yeah, right. So you have to kind of put yourself aside and put the work. Like it's almost like putting your ego to the side a little bit and putting the work at the forefront. So whatever serves the work,
yeah, because
is the winning. Like the best idea wins, kind of thing. You know, not like the idea that I like the best. It's like it does. If your idea is better than me about my work, we're going with that because I care about the work more than I care about being right or being the one to come up with the idea.
Because it's like I was watching interviews last week with like. With Denis Villeneuve, and he was talking about like Dune and the process of making
director of Dune, for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, and editing it, and it's like, well, I'm sure you've heard there's like this saying of like, is it kill your darling or kill your baby?
Kill your darlings, yeah. But what does it mean?
Yeah, but it means like basically, even if you love something, sometimes you have to let it go. Like you have to kill it. It's not part of it. And he's like, there was this shot, like this thing that like we made that like I love this shot and I love the way it looks, but it just like wasn't right for the story we want to tell. Like it just
you can't be precious about I came up with this thing and I love it. It's like, well, if it doesn't tell the story right,
it's like, but it wasn't the best thing for the movie. So then it's like it has to go. So you have to cut it. You have to kill it.
Yeah, precious in that way.
So it's kind of like that. I mean. And it's much harder to do than it is to like talk about it. But I think it's that thing of, you know, having it be like, it's almost something that's outside of you. And that's why I think sometimes it's like very difficult for artists to do that when they do pieces that are very personal. Like that are about their trauma or their story or their like something, some deep internal identity thing. You know, that I think sometimes it's like harder to have that distance and
objectivity.
And that detachment from it being something that is outside of you, because when it enters the public space and it's theater and it's in front of it, like
it's entertainment,
like
still.
it's a product,
Yeah,
like it's a thing, you know, on its own, like independent of you. Somebody else could play it and you're not, like, and that's kind of the beauty of it. But it's also the thing I think that's interesting, in that, you know, you have to let other people in, and in order to elevate the work, in order to tell the story, in order to create something that's outside of, that's like a separate thing from you. So I think that sometimes it's also it's also something to think about for people making, of like, how much is it like something very personal,
and how objective are you going to be able to be if it is,
and how much are you going to make space for other people to appropriate like part of the story and to be part of it and to have a voice. Because I think if you're not ready to do that, then there's gonna be a lot of friction if you want them to, you know, and it's like you want people to be invested enough to like really care and dedicate themselves to it. But then if you don't make space for them to have some ownership and some room to play, then, you know, it's like, okay, then just tell me what to do. And then you can't tell them exactly what to do, because so I think these are the times that it can become like a very difficult process. So I think it's something to keep in mind.
On the